It's time for a cup of coffee with Will and Chris at Slumberland Furniture. From Slumberland Furniture in Osage Beach, here are your hosts, William Holtz and Chris Schneider.
Howdy ho, Ranger Joes. Guess who's back from their time in Dallas?
That's right. Went to DFW for Memorial Day weekend. Had a great time. We'll talk about that. You went to a farm of some sort, right?
Yeah, I went berry picking with the girls. We'll tell you a little bit about that. Plus, we're going to follow up on the Lakeport Oasis development in Osage Beach. A lot of contention. We talked about that last week in the raising concerns from the locals. We're going to look at the super TIF that the developer is going to be trying for and what that process is going to look like. Plus, did you catch Dave Maupin's most recent Among the Dogwoods blog?
I did. Very interesting stuff on there.
Yeah, the cemetery in Bollinger Creek, very interesting. It appears there's actually human remains running down into the Lake of the Ozarks. Strange, surprise we're just hearing about that. We'll unpackage that a little bit. Plus, City of Lake Ozark, talking about this Oasis development, Osage Beach. Let's not forget about the Osage Nation Casino.
Yeah.
And they were hoping that the City of Lake Ozark was going to officially endorse them at their Board of Aldermen meeting Tuesday. Well, not so fast.
It didn't happen,
Yeah,
no.
City of Lake Ozark was unwilling to do that. And so what's next? We're going to talk about that plus a very special hometown hero, and we'll look back at a very special Memorial Day weekend at the lake. After this, from Daryl Cunningham with Slumberland at the Lake.
Hey everyone, Daryl Cunningham with Slumberland Furniture at the Lake. We're in the middle of our memorial sale. You need to come and check out all the great deals, just like this one. Buy the sofa and get the recliner for free. In the mattress gallery for $9.99, you get the mattress, adjustable base, and the bedding bundle. $2.98 gets you this wonderful recliner while supplies last. At Slumberland Furniture, not only do we give you big discounts, but we also have 0% interest financing for up to 36 months. Come check us out, Slumberland Furniture, where we're bringing happy home.
All right, so as we get started this week, all is right in the world because you left after last week's recording. I had to go to my IV drip treatment by myself. I had to live through Memorial Day weekend by myself. It's just not the same when Uncle C is gone.
Yeah, we went to, we try to travel every Memorial Day weekend because that's our anniversary, Mrs. Uncle C and I. So
How many years now?
23 now, 23 years.
23, and it's been pure bliss.
Oh, yeah. Never a fight, right? Yeah. So we love baseball, so we try to go to some baseball tournament somewhere. We went to Dallas and took in the Big 12 baseball tournament. First time we'd ever been in the Texas Rangers' new building with a retractable roof on top. So when you get old, it's harder to sit in the sunshine for a long time, right? So love that retractable roof. So we sat there for game after game and just had a great time. We're TCU fans because we lived in Dallas for a long time and they won the tournament. So we had a really good time, but good to be back at home. Although it was great to kind of get away from the lake during the crazy Memorial Day weekend.
So the Horned Frogs, they won the Big 12 tournament?
Yeah, they did, yeah.
They got a good baseball program.
They do have a good baseball program. They went to the College World Series several times in a row a few years ago, and they haven't been back in about 5 years, but they do have a good, strong program.
Now, you were mentioning you liked the new retractable roof for the Ranger Stadium. You actually spent many, many summers inside the old stadium, correct?
Yeah, the old Ranger Stadium, yeah. And I was with the media then, so I got to sit up in the cushy press box, you know, with an air conditioner and stuff. But the reason why they built that new stadium with a roof is in Texas it gets so hot.
Right.
You just can't go sit and watch a game when it's, 115 degrees out there. So that makes a big difference. I think that's where things are going in that sport, retractable roofs. Because the Cowboy Stadium, which is right next door to that stadium, has a retractable roof too. So, you can go in there and stay cool if it's burning hot or open it up if you want. The open air stadium, that's pretty cool.
Jerry Dome, kind of the first of its kind. He doesn't do anything
Jerry
small.
World, yeah.
Okay, so over Memorial Day weekend, you were out of the area, but a lot of things took place. Did you see the 13-mile marker? The older model Formula Cruiser actually hit that underwater rock bluff right in front of the Lodge of Four Seasons.
I guess everybody knows that's there. I didn't know that was there. That would have been me hitting that thing because I wouldn't have known. Do they have like big warning buoys or anything around there?
You could see there, and I believe these photos and this video is courtesy of LOZ Drone, Ben Veerhoff. or Ben Vins rather. Now the weird thing is they have those 2 buoys, but that's not a lot to prevent somebody or making a change in direction if you're traveling at a pretty good speed as you make your way towards that. Now, I would imagine that this particular instance may lead the powers that be to do something more because, this was a pretty big boat, and I don't know if you saw the Lake Expo article, but first the guy didn't have insurance and he was unwilling to hire a professional tow company, Lake Tow, because they were going to have to use airbags and all of the contraptions, and they were going to have to use a blower to keep water out of the bow, and so it was a bad deal, start to finish. He didn't do that, he left it. Well, eventually came back and he tried to get it himself and tow it. Well, it capsized, and so he just vacated. He or hers vacated the boat. Lodge of Four Seasons worked it out with Lake Tow. Well, they then dragged it close to the shore because it was getting close to their docks. And at this point, the argument is still who is responsible for this, because Lake Tow was quoted as saying, hey, when you have to use the blower to keep the water out and you have to use the airbags to get it to come up, you're looking at thousands and thousands and about $10,000 for that particular job. It's so wild happening. I'd never seen a boat hit that, stuck on that, and you see that big cruiser there just sitting above those rocks. And unfortunate because, like you said, I wouldn't have known about that. And those 2 buoys there aren't really ample enough notice. I would think red flag, something. Be like, beware,
And there's several places like that on the lake. And if you're a visitor coming in, you don't know where those places are. Right. So, but I know over by Tonka, there's a big tree stump that sticks up. And I think they've just got like 1 buoy there warning people to stay away. But if you don't know that and you're ripping through there, that could tear you up. And then there's another one way out, like on the 55-mile marker, going up toward Truman. There is a sandbar there going into one of the coves in there. And they do have that pretty well marked off, but all of those places pretty dangerous, and I'm sure there's more.
Yeah, I mean, the main concern is, a hole or a puncture into the bottom of the boat. I mean, then you start taking on water. That's a substantial amount of damage. I was surprised the boat sat there for almost a day, and didn't start to sink. I mean, sitting on that rock, so I guess it was pretty sturdy. But
did it eventually sink?
Because he tried himself to wedge it off of there and pull it, and had no success. It started to sink, and just the stern was pointing straight up into the air, and then at that point it started to, because of the wakes and the waves of all the activity on the water for Memorial Day weekend, the boat was getting close to the docks of the Lodge of Four Seasons, and they were kind of handcuffed there. They had to contact Lake Tow and work something out and say, hey, you have to come help us, you have to get this away from the docks, get it closer to the shoreline. But the question still remains is, the guy didn't have insurance, he left it. Should he not be responsible for paying for the removal? And so that's where it remains currently, and I guess it's still right there by the lake.
What has happened to personal responsibility in our country? People just don't want to take, hey, it's your freaking boat, you freaking crashed it, you freaking pay for it. I mean, that seems to make sense, right?
He goes, but hey, I didn't have insurance. So.
Well, you should have had it.
Correct. So very, very strange there, but that got a lot of traction online and was worth mentioning. All right, so as we move on to our local headlines, last week, right before you left, man, the city of Osage Beach, they had their TIF commission hearing, and they had voted 7-4 to accept the redevelopment plan and the TIF proposal to go to the Board of Aldermen, and then they accepted or passed it unanimously in the first reading. And so that caused a lot of blowback from the locals. There were a lot of concerns. The overall feel that I have gotten was that they're against this development. Now, there's a huge meeting coming up this Thursday, June 1st at 6 o'clock. Now, they're always the first and third Thursday of the month. The City of Osage Beach Board of Aldermen meeting, they take place at 6 o'clock at the City of Osage Beach City Hall, unless they call a special meeting. So meaning this Thursday, a lot should be determined, and then on the 15th, 2 weeks from Thursday, a lot will be determined. But when I look at the upcoming agenda for Thursday, which you can find online right there, a few of the unfinished business I thought was interesting. An ordinance designating a portion of the city of Osage Beach, Missouri as a redevelopment area, approving the Lakeport Village Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Plan, making findings related thereto, approving a redevelopment project. That's one of the unfinished business In new business, they said Bill 2347 is listed, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach approving a development agreement and a corporation and transportation project agreement in connection with the Lakeport Village Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Plan. That'll be the first reading. And then J, that was D, Bill 2354 on the agenda, an ordinance authorizing the City of Osage Beach, Missouri to issue its taxable industrial revenue bonds, and they have in parentheses, Lakeport Village Project Series 2023, and a principal amount not to exceed $360 million for the purpose of providing funds to pay the cost of acquiring, constructing, improving a facility for an industrial development project in the city, approving a plan for the project, and authorizing the city to enter into certain agreements and take certain other actions in connection therewith. There's other things on the agenda that were interesting. Now, it is worth noting this Thursday's meeting, remote viewing is available on Facebook through the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, and on YouTube at City of Osage Beach. And so that's cool that they're making those meetings available if you can't be there.
Yeah.
But I did find that a little interesting, some of those things. And the new business that was also going to be discussed was the public hearing with the Lakeport Village Tax Increment Financing, the TIF, the redevelopment plan. So Mr. Tagethoff will present the summary and the redevelopment plan once again. And then they're looking for an ordinance designating a portion of the City of Osage Beach as a redevelopment area, approving the Lakeport Village Tax Increment Financing redevelopment plan, making findings related thereto, approving that redevelopment project for the redevelopment area, and adopting the TIF with respect thereto, and authorizing certain actions by city officials. Sounds like a lot of gobbledygook.
It does.
To be honest with you.
Legalese there, a whole lot.
A ton of it, and all of these things that mention the Lakeport Oasis development. Now, what I did understand was some people were upset about the potential of a super TIF, and we had talked about that, and there seems to be some great misunderstanding on what a super TIF is. And so I reached out to the State of Missouri Deputy Communications Director, Stephanie Whitaker, and she told me that both Governor Parson and Lieutenant Governor Kehoe were not available for comment. But what I wanted to know was, are you guys for a super TIF? Because if the state level, that's where the funding is going to come in from, is not for it, it's never going to happen. And so I had heard murmurings from local elected officials that said, oh, they did it in Branson at Branson Landing. I've already spoke with the governor and the lieutenant governor, and they're all about it. So I had to reach out to them, and they're unwilling to say they're all for it. And they said, we'll put you in touch with someone from the economic development side. But they said, here is what a TIF is supposed to be for. And so they gave you a nice little sheet that showed you why does a TIF exist. So I found it interesting, Chris. The purpose of a TIF, the reason it exists at the state level, facilitate the redevelopment of blighted areas by providing essential public infrastructure. Meaning it has to be blighted. Well, does that sound familiar, blighted? Because the first time we heard of it was the potential rush blighting of the property right there with the Lakewood condos. And so as I look at this, what eligible areas and eligible applicants, program benefits, it appears right now that the developer in the City of Osage Beach are trying to get their ducks in a row to make this project, this property, qualify for a super TIF. If you look at this sheet put on the website that the Stephanie Whitaker, the Deputy Communications Director, prompted me to, it literally looks like this is how you be compliant if you want a super TIF. And it looks like these are the steps that are being taken right now by the developer and by the City of Osage Beach. It's a little concerning. And also, if you look at for a super TIF, there's a process that has to happen. And there's this chart they gave me, which was very easy to follow. And the process goes, the municipality, which is the City of Osage Beach, and the developer must conduct the process of establishing the local TIF concurrently with the application of the state TIF. That's the process I believe we're in right now.
Yep.
And so they're trying to get this redevelopment plan and the local TIF to be concurrent to what the state TIF would need to be for a super TIF. Now the next step, if that were to happen, the municipality, City of Osage Beach, would submit a state TIF application on behalf of the developer. So it would actually be the city of Osage Beach on behalf of Jeff Tegethoff and his development that would take it to the state level and present this application on behalf of the developer. Meaning the city of Osage Beach would have to really, really believe this is good for our area, and really, really, if they're going to be the spokesperson on behalf of the developer at the state level. The next step would be the municipality, Osage Beach, obtains authorization to receive those state TIF funds from the state budget. At that point, the Department of Economic Development and the Office of Administration approve the state TIF application and issue that certificate of approval. And then Osage Beach every year would submit an increment request, at least annually, if not more frequently, requesting distribution of increment earned by that project. So a lot of gobbledygook again, right? But it seemed weird to me that this is the process it would have to take, and that the city of Osage Beach would then go to the state level and be the one to put in for that application on behalf of the developer.
And it's interesting too that apparently a part of the process is that the land in question has to be blighted, which would explain why they're trying to blight that, the condos right next door to it.
And that's one of the huge points of contention.
Yeah.
They did a blight study, the developer did, to show, and the blight study found that that area had not had substantial investment or development or growth or infrastructure change, and the only reason that it would be attractive to develop or grow would be with the assistance of tax increment financing. And to that I call BS.
Yeah.
I do not believe that's true with the topsider condos across the way, the bridge right there, Dog Days right there,
It would
and all
seem that
that's
that
coming
is
in.
prime lakefront property right there. I don't know how you can call that blighted property. Yeah. So, but they're trying, like you said, they're trying to get their ducks in a row so that they can do this. And again, I understand why. If you're a business developer, you want to be able to build your project as cheaply as possible with as much help and funding as possible so that you can make as much money as possible. I understand that, but that doesn't mean it's right. And it sounds like there are a bunch of local people, like you said, calling BS on this. Say, wait a minute, so it'll be interesting to see where this goes. This is happening with a couple of the big projects because it looks like it's kind of happening, the same basic thing, local people stepping up saying, wait a minute, with the one of the casinos, the Indian casino,
Right.
There's a lot of pushback on that right now too. So it's interesting.
And we're going to talk about that. But the weird thing is there's so many concerns about this property, the blighting of the property, which you now see maybe why they would be eligible for a super TIF. You're going to need that property to be blighted to say, hey, nothing else would ever happen here if this generous developer wouldn't come in
Right.
and sacrifice his resources and his skills to bring back this area. That's what the study found. I don't believe that. And so you needed it to be blighted. And then you have other concerns. How about the Lakewood condos? We still haven't found out. There's 1,100 deeds there, and only about 15 of those deeds, it looks like, have been obtained by Tegethoff and the developer. So where does that leave the remaining deed owners, and where does that leave Lakewood condos? And if you're a condo owner there, and they tear down everything around you, all of the trees, all of the landscape, all of the things that are beautiful that you and generations of your family have loved, I don't think it's real appealing to stay.
Yeah.
Maybe a low ball offer, you can push me out of here. And I think that could be the strategy. And I think people have an issue with that, if that is the case, plus traffic and roads in those three exits there.
Yeah.
Nichols, Jeffries, and Case are all going to be affected
Big time.
by this.
And the bridge, yeah.
How about workforce? How about affordable housing? So many questions are being raised in this Thursday's meeting at June 1st. I would recommend you attend. Also, again, you can find that on the Osage Beach City's Facebook page and on their YouTube page. Good work to the City of Osage Beach, because that's newer, those meetings being available.
Yeah.
And so we applaud that. But I again will say, I do not agree with 100% TIF. Any TIF that's not 50-50, so at least 50% of those funds are going back to the schools, to the fire, to the police. The schools don't get the option to opt out like the fire and police do. And so that's another point of contention. Do not attract developers to come into our area on the backs of our children. Yeah. And that's where another one of the arguments are coming. So we will see, but I'm telling you, Chris, a lot of people have questions and a lot of people are being vocal about this currently.
Yeah.
And that's going to bring, go ahead.
And this is, this is all a part of the process. So this is all good that all this is coming up, being looked at. Hopefully everything will be done the right way. Again, developers are business people. They're trying to get it done as cheaply as possible and make the most money that they possibly can. So that's the way they operate. Hopefully locals and municipalities will say, wait a minute, if we're going to do this, you got to do it right. You got to pay what you need to pay to develop this. It's not, like you said, going to put it on the backs of the local community and the local kids and police and everything else and hurt that just to bring you to town, right?
Right.
We don't want that. We want this done right. So hopefully that will happen. We'll see where the process goes. But if you're interested in this, show up. Go to the meeting or at least watch it online and see what's going on.
Yeah, and I'll also say this. I'm all for some of this new. It is exciting, but the lake's not had anything like this the last 5 years, and the lake has continued to grow. And so I still will argue it's the people down here, when paired with our body of water, that make this place special. And if you're telling me that if we don't get this amusement park, the lake is going to die or stop growing, I'm not buying it.
I'm not buying it either, no.
And so you don't have to force some of these things when you have other issues like road and bridge, like affordable housing, like workforce. Those seem like issues that should be addressed prior to building huge developments, especially if we're giving tax breaks and tax abatements. I'm getting more uncomfortable with the overall idea as a TIF the more I look into it.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see where this goes.
All right, so another big development that we haven't talked about is the Osage Nation potential casino coming. We've been talking about it for well over 18 months now, and we hadn't heard a lot until Tuesday night's Lake Ozark Board of Aldermen meeting.
So a resolution in support of the Osage Nation's plans for the casino was tabled by the Lake Ozark Board of Aldermen at their Tuesday, May 23rd board meeting. The resolution was tabled pending additional information. All right, very interesting stuff here. So the tabled resolution read that the city supported the Osage Nation's development plans and plans to reestablish and expand upon its cultural presence, Osage Nation, of course, here in the community. The resolution also would have authorized city staff to engage in communication with the Osage Nation to obtain information about its development plans.
Now?
Exactly. Why can they not be doing that now?
I'm pretty sure they are.
Right?
I mean, I hate to be the whistleblower, but I'm pretty sure they are.
So this 3-hour meeting was standing room only. Many citizens expressed their disapproval of an Osage Nation casino in the city. And Mayor Newberry, Dennis Newberry, said he wanted more information before giving an endorsement. He said, quote, "You have given the city no information, and this has been going on 18 months. We cannot endorse something we know nothing about." Which seems to be pretty smart to me. Kind of the same thing that we were talking about before with the other development is happening here. Good for Mayor Newberry for stepping up and not just being steamrolled by this thing. Several citizens voiced concern that local law enforcement would have no jurisdiction on Indian land if a crime was committed at the casino. Good point. The executive director of Missouri Petroleum Group, representing a lot of gas stations, convenience centers, truck stops throughout Missouri, he spoke in opposition to the resolution. He said that the city has not heard all it needs to make a fully informed decision. The public development information, including applications, permits, planning, and zoning, impact on roads and traffic, as you mentioned, the impact on city services, including police, fire, and first responders, the impact on the environment, local and state federal tax collection. I mean, all of that we don't have enough information on. So again, locals are stepping up and calling BS on some of this development, saying, wait a minute, we need to do this right. Fascinating stuff. Good for the local people stepping in and wanting to get this done correctly. Not that they don't want it done, they just want it done correctly, right?
Okay, so real quick, the thing that makes this different is Osage Nation, they qualify for a treaty as a sovereign nation where
Right.
if they did get granted the rights to come build a casino, they would not be subject to the same local and state taxes, and they wouldn't be regulated by the state and federal government like a regular casino. That doesn't sound bad, except for where does that leave the local and state taxes that would help pay for things like road and bridge, police, all the things that are going to be impacted by this.
Yeah.
And so Osage Nation's come in and they've played the slow game. They've given money, they've cleaned up property, and now they're wanting the city to say, hey, now once you guys endorse us, we'll be able to get to the state level, we'll be able to get our treaty, we'll be able to move forward. The city of Lake Ozark is being smart. They're like, hey, we feel like you have had pacts put in place before that weren't in writing. Nothing swears them to a pact. And what that means is, since there's not the tax money coming in, they would agree to an annual gift to the city of Lake Ozark. Let's say they figured they were going to do $100 million in revenue, and that would leave $4.5 million in tax that would go to the city for police, for schools, for road, for bridge, for whatever. So since we're not going to be able to collect that tax, you're going to earmark an annual gift of, let's say, $4.5 million, and you can earmark 20% towards road and bridge, 20% towards schools, 20% towards infrastructure, 20% towards police. That pact would have to be agreed on by Osage Nation and City of Lake Ozark. Once that's agreed upon, they want it in writing. Osage Nation is saying, no, you endorse and say you like the pact. And the City of Lake Ozark is saying, we haven't seen the pact. We haven't seen your plans. We cannot, in good faith, endorse this until you show us what that's going to look like. Because if we don't know, we're afraid, and this is what I think City of Lake Ozark is doing, we're afraid we're going to endorse you. You're going to move forward. You're never going to pay us back the pact, and we're going to be caught with our pants around our ankles, with a black eye in our community, no financial payback, no benefit for us, and so they're being diligent, and I like that. However, I will say this. I would much rather either not get taxes or give a TIF to the Native Americans, to the Osage Nation, before I'd give a TIF to some well-off business owner who wants a break to build a big monstrosity. That's all I'm going to say. If anyone here deserves a TIF, it's the Osage Nation. And they're not asking for a TIF. They're just asking for their sovereignty where they wouldn't have to pay back. And I think I would like it to be in writing, that pact as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because, but do you act in good faith? I mean, that sounds like a dangerous thing to do. But if anybody deserves for you to give them the benefit of the doubt and act in good faith, I would say it'd be the Native Americans. Instead of all of these people, these moral people beating their moral compass or their moral trumpet and drum saying, oh, I just can't do a casino because of my Christian values. It's like, yet we have a sex shop and bars on every corner and a strip club. It's like, so church and state need to stay separate. And if anybody regarding a development or a casino deserves a break, the treaty, sovereignty, I would say it'd be the Osage Nation. But I do like that Lake Ozark is being diligent here because we just don't know enough. They even asked, Michael Crowley attended the meeting representing the Osage Nation as their legal counsel, stated that he's already met with Lake Ozark Police and Fire and Miller County Sheriff Grigori and other government stakeholders and how they might be impacted. So very wisely, Lake Ozark Mayor Dennis Newberry said, okay, I want some more information. You have been given no information. He said, I'd like to know what other areas your agreements look like. And he couldn't give that. You know, he said, when I do something, I research it. I do diligence in order to make a quality decision. Several board members and citizens echoed Newberry's request for additional information. The only two that were in favor for the casino were the legal counsel, Michael Crowley, and then former state rep Rocky Miller, who ironically enough is a current consultant for Osage Nation. So those were the only two pros in the room. And what's weird is I feel like the city of Lake Ozark and Dennis Newberry, Mayor Newberry, have been for Osage Nation up until this point. And they're like, well, hey, now you guys need to put your money where your mouth is. You've talked about it. Let's put it in writing before we're going to endorse you.
Absolutely. That just seems smart to me.
I agree that does. So two huge developments, completely different, because one is a TIF and one is a sovereign people who would get a treaty and would not be subject to the same regulations and same taxes. And so they shouldn't be looked at the same. But they're two huge issues. And I would tell you right now, after Tuesday's meeting, I think we are further away from Osage Nation becoming a reality than we thought we were.
I think you're right. I think a lot of us thought it was just fait accompli, and it's not. The brakes have been put on, so that's
Listen,
nice.
I get so excited Uncle Chris gets back. We have so much to talk about. We're already out of time. Don't miss all that's happening on Lake TV this week. Of course, Community Spotlight, Happy Hour, all the great content. For Uncle Chris, I'm Wild Will from Slumberland at the Lake. Until next week, we'll see you then.